Welcome to Hybrid Warfare Analytical Group's UCMC podcast, where our analysts convene to delve into the realms of Russian disinformation, propaganda, and the influence of hybrid warfare in 2024. In these succinct podcast episodes, the team will explore recent observations, analyses, and share expert opinions about conclusions on the prevailing challenges within the information sphere today. And today, we will discuss the recent changes in Putin's cabinet of loyal politicians, specifically the shake-up of how the Ministry of Defense now works and will work as Russia essentially moves its government onto a war footing. My name is Matt, and I am the host of today's podcast, and I've got my colleagues with me today, UCMC analysts Nastya and Anton. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining me today. Let's get right into it straight away. Nastya, if we can start with you, what have you been seeing in Russian propaganda circles online? And what has been the most interesting part of your analysis?
And thank you for the question, Matt. The primary mission of propagandists regarding the appointment of the Russian Minister of Defense, of Andrei Belousov, is to convince the public and the Western world that this decision is positive, is really good, is effective for Russia. And firstly, the propaganda praises him as an influential scientist and manager. He is called a strong state builder. It is credited with the achievement that Russia has withstood sanctions. They call him a grey cardinal who was cleaning the economy. And the primary narrative aimed at the internal audience is that the head of Ministry of Defense is an honest and principled person. This is evidenced by the vigorous reaction of the media and Telegram channels of Russian propaganda to Belousov praise. It is acceptable to make mistakes, but lying is unacceptable. According to the Financial Times, Belousov appointment indicates that Vladimir Putin wants to control Russia's record to defense spending more. Propagandists use this thesis to portray a scenario of Russia's victory in the war against Ukraine. And they believe that defeat and capitulation await Ukraine after Belousov put things in order, really propagandistic point of view. And that what was there was some interesting fact I discovered through this topic is that there is noticeable anti-Western rhetoric about Belousov. In propagandist messages, he is often called a patriot of Russia, a person who was engaged in cleaning the economy of pro-Western Kyiv. These messages do not mention that Belousov actually received personal grants from the United States Agency for International Development, USAID. And according to Russian law, people who received such grants were recognized as foreign agents in 2020. And are not allowed to hold position in public authorities, especially, I think, as Ministry of Defense. This fact highlights how the Russian elite disregards its own laws, turning them into a complete fiction.
Really interesting, Nastya, especially about that US aid part. It'll be interesting to see because obviously at the start of the full-scale invasion, one of the biggest issues for the Russian forces was the amount of corruption in the Ministry of Defense. And obviously the corruption will stay. Russia's corruption is only getting worse year on year by all of the indexes that we're following. But it'll be interesting to see how they make order of the corruption so then it works more just for the specific elite. So what I imagine is more his approach will be to manage this disorder of corruption so the corruption works better for those in power and the elite. And that's obviously why Putin is praising him so much. Okay, thank you, Nastia. And Anton, what about you? What have you been seeing recently on all of the chatter? It's been quite loud, but obviously after the last week, there's been a lot of other things going on. So what did you see when it was topical, at least?
Thank you, Matt. And as you say, this reshuffling of cabinets was provoked a great discussion in Russian society. And many journalists and Russian experts tried to take some kind of uncertain position, and some tried to express restrained optimism about the arrest of Shoigu deputies, while trying to separate their figures from Shoigu and Putin as well, because they want to keep the bad stories wants to be kept away from political and government in Russia. So in this way, Russian propagandists wanted to embody the classic Russian proverb about a good Tsar and a bad boyars that makes that lies to Tsar and makes things even worse. So, on the other hand, some journalists tried not to change their critical attitude towards the Russian defense system in general, and criticism of such permutations is mainly heard only in the context of military inadequacy and ineffectiveness. So, these observers are called as the war party or eagles, as you prefer. In the Russian Federation, this party is not very massive, but some war correspondents are held in this position to try to mobilize Russian military system to be more effective. And this kind of Russian patriots, the most important thing is change that will allow to be more effective in encroaching for foreign territories and killing Ukrainians and so on.
Cool, guys. Thank you very much for joining me on today's episode. I hope for our listeners it was interesting and insightful, and that's for you to know the differences and what is actually happening in the Russian government at the moment after Putin's re-election. Thank you very much for listening, and speak to you soon.